Good morning. Good morning, everyone. How the devil are you doing? Excuse me. Just having a few minor issues. Just as I went live, it's decided that I'm not allowed to broadcast to Facebook. I'm trying to fix it in the background. Is anybody actually watching from Facebook? That's what I'd like to know. Because I think I've reconnected, but I'm not entirely sure, and I can't see it on my screen. So hopefully we're coming through loud and clear. If not, I will fix it overnight and make sure we're doing that again tomorrow. So yes, very quickly, Dan Cullen was here early doors, as is his way. He was actually here at 9:10 this morning, saying top of the morning, guys. Yeah, absolutely top of the morning to you as well. Gary Muirhead apologising for his absence yesterday. We had a safety stand down on site yesterday, so had to watch and catch up on watch on catch up, but everything all okay today. Good to have you with us, Gary. Not one of your questions of the day today. I've used one of my own because it ties in basically with today's morning monologue, which I'll get to in just a moment. Jim Turner is here as well. Jim Turner watching from YouTube. Now, I wonder if he's watching from YouTube because we're having issues over on Facebook. Seems to be the case. Seems to be the case. And Andy Darvell is actually here as well. Morning, morning, morning. I forgot that you used to say that. Good morning, good morning, good morning, morning, Andy. How you doing? Love the thunder and lightning yesterday. Yeah, caught Fred by surprise. He was out on the golf course when that happened. Really did give him a wake up call. Now, let's see if I can get Facebook back on stream. Oh blimey, this looks like a fucking hell spells. There we are. That's done. Has that done it? Has that shaken it loose? I really don't know. Really don't know. Not sure what's going on with Facebook this morning. So if you are trying to watch it on Facebook, I don't know why I'm saying this. If you're trying to watch it on Facebook, you probably can't because it's not working properly. I don't know what's going on there. Let's have a look. What do we got? We got. Well, people saying good morning to each other. My apologies for my confusion. The system seems to be playing silly buggers. No intro yesterday. Yeah, I figured that out. That one was mostly down to me. So basically, I have to upload each day's video intro. You know, the one that gives you a bit of a preamble and says good morning to our usual suspects, and also gives you an indication of what's going to be in the show. I'd uploaded it, but I hadn't actually taken it from there to there and made it the intro. Oversight on my part. But this one with Facebook, I've no idea what's going on with that. That seems to be a problem all of its own making. I'm still trying to fix it in the background, but it doesn't seem to be having it at all. Just try it one more time. That seems to be done. I do apologize. Just talk amongst yourselves. Just while you're doing that, now we seem to have got somewhere. I think we're back on with Facebook. So you pretend none of that happened. Pretend none of that happened, and I'll get to the other stuff in a moment. I'm off to the theatre later. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But there's a couple of things I wanted to show you. Yeah, where are they? Where are they indeed? So first of all, let me show you. This is a fairly low level one. This one, I wanted to show you this. Let me get to the right place. There's been an aggregate survey by the it's called the Aggregate Mineral Survey 2023. I don't know why it was 2023. The aggregate mineral surveys are conducted every 4 years by the British Geological Survey, the Ministry of Housing, blah 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 blah, and they have discovered that basically our reserves of aggregates, stone and rock and all of the things that we build houses and roads and fuck knows what else with. Yeah, the reserves have fallen 46% between 2001 and 2023. So there is real concerns now. The MPA, which is the Mineral Products Association, has said they're calling on government to renew its commitment to the long-established managed aggregate supply system. It's intended to ensure a steady supply and adequate supply of materials for construction and industry. When you read down a little bit further, when I can find the right bit, As it stands today, areas such as the southeast of England rely heavily on imports of materials from other regions in the country. The long-term planning for these supplies and the transport and infrastructure needed to deliver them is vital to economic development. Britain is blessed with a diverse geology, blah de blah de blah. We hope the government will heed the message from the AM 2023 report that the decline in permitted reserves must be urgently addressed to support in UK PLC. So there you are. Good to answer this one from Jim. I would rather be on Facebook than YouTube. You can now watch this on YouTube. I think I fixed the problem. I appear to be broadcasting over there. So my apologies for the hold up there. Gary agrees. I know what you mean, Jim. YouTube limit you to how much text you can post. I didn't know that, but yeah, as I say, looks like I'm back on Facebook. What have we got here? Gary, are you getting into the habit of having a shave by now? Yeah, I am. I am. Do you know what's really strange? And I realise this is a slight divergence from our usual thing. When I have a beard, I regularly go and get my beard trimmed down at the local barbers, and he does all the hot towels and the open razor and all the things. It's a bit of male pampering. Quite enjoy it. Since I've since I've had the beard off, not been once. You'd have thought while you're clean shaven, get along and get the hot towel treatment, and get the pampering, and get the open razor. Really get down to the nitty gritty. No, instead I get up and I do it myself, and it's shiny today. It's absolutely shiny today. Jim Turner says, I'm on YouTube because something's changed on Facebook. I can't see what I'm typing as I'm typing it, and my typing, spelling, and grammar is so shy. I need to monitor as I do it. Listen, you're among friends here, my friend. You just type away, and well, see how we go. Easy work, mate. But on this site, we don't have a break till 11, which is why I keep missing the show, as I'm always busy around showtime. Hey, listen, you're not the only one that's busy around showtime. Now, I've already shown you one story from today. I'm going to take that away, and I'm going to show you another one, which I have to say, this one rankled quite a bit more when I can find it. Let's have a look. Where are we? And this one is connected to our friends over at the Construction Industry Training Board, or the CITB, as they are better known. Now, I'd like to read you the opening paragraph, because I kind of think this is a bit of a misleading statement. The Construction Industry Training Board, CITB, is seeking to improve the quality of industry training by selling its stamp of approval to training providers. The CITB has launched its Training Provider Network, TPN, or they love an abbreviation, for approved training providers across England, Scotland, and Wales. So far, so good. To become a member, training providers must deliver training relevant to employers in the construction industry and meet a quality assurance criteria specific to the type of training they provide, and pay the CITB £1,000 a year. Is that improving the quality of industry training, or is that improving the quality of the CITB's bank balance? Leave you to decide. Here we go. Jim Turner says, ramp up the tax of miles travelling from quarry, batching plant, factory, etc. Then it will cut down on pollution, CO2, traffic, road wear, and the work will be in the area as the people. The issue we've got, as we said in that previous bit from the aggregates industry, there are when you actually look at the geology of the nation. And I know somebody's mentioned it here. Let's have a look. And where is it? Where is it? Somebody said about the biggest quarry, I think. There we are. Dan said, biggest quarry in the UK is in Scotland. Yes, it is. Glen Sander, I would guess that would be. I've been lucky to visit that one, Dan, when Foster and Yeoman opened it. See, the issue you've got is there are places like Scotland. You've got a lot of fairly hard rock up there. You've got a fair bit of granite and that kind of thing. Good for wear capabilities on roads and stuff. Down here in the south, we've got lots and lots of sand. Away in East Anglia, you've got a lot of dredged aggregates, that used to be in the sea and are now on dry land. The problem is we need all of them. So the south almost certainly needs to drag some of its materials down from Scotland, and Scotland may well need to drag some of our sand up there. It's not quite as it's very, very difficult to be locally self-sufficient. And one of the things that I always admire when you travel up and down the country, and I was reminded of this the last time I was at the Hillhead show, when you drive into the Hillhead exhibition, if you come out of Buxton, they're on the right-hand side. There's a whole new bunch of houses there that have been built, I think, between the last Hillhead and the latest Hillhead. And they've all used local stone, which is nice to see. And bearing in mind they are literally on the doorstep of a quarry, it's lovely to see. But there's more goes into that house than just the facing stone. There will be sand and cement and everything else that has probably come from a bit further afield. The rock from Glen Sand is shipped all over the world. Yeah, it is. And I remember being told, I don't know if this is the case, when I visited, which would have been the very early 1990s, when I visited Glen Sand, at that time they were saying that it was cheaper. It was cheaper to fill a boat, a container ship. It's not a container ship, is it? Because it wouldn't have containers on it. But to fill a ship and send it to the eastern seaboard of America than to fill trucks and send them to the south of England. Which in some ways I guess makes sense. You're hauling an awful lot with one big ship, and you're hauling much, much smaller bits with lots and lots of trucks. But that I was told that. As I say, don't know if that is still the case. Dan Cullen, going back to our CITB story. Well, that's just a money-making exercise. No fucks given on the training. Yeah. Now, I will point out that apparently those that are taking part in this training provider network do need to meet a quality assurance criteria specific to the type of training they provide. That's what it says in the statement. But they also have to pay £1,000 a year. For what exactly? Do you get a little badge? Do you get a little badge to wear on your shirt? Do you get something to put on your letterhead? I wonder. Now, I did mention, I will start the show in a second. I did mention immediately after the show today, I'm off to the theatre. Now, before you think, he's no longer one of us, he's becoming all cultured and shit. I'm not. This was a gift for my wife's birthday. Couldn't do it on her birthday. Just couldn't get the dates to marry up. But my wife absolutely loves like a murder mystery and stuff. And there's a thing going on in London, not far from Waterloo, which is where we'll be travelling to, called Witness for the Prosecution. I'm fairly sure they've done it as a TV show, but you basically attend kind of a reconstruction of a court case. I'm fairly sure it's a murder. I'm not entirely sure, but there is a judge, there's a jury, but you effectively are kind of part of the jury. Obviously, as I say, it's a reenactment. It's not real, but you're in the audience and you actually watch the case unfold as part. It's called Witness for the Prosecution. I'm going there this afternoon. I'll tell you about it tomorrow. Jim Turner says there's material all over the place. As we used to have small quarries all over the place, but nowadays everything favours big businesses. So small independent quarries won't get planning permission. If you go over to where is that? Yeah, it's on Construction Index. That story about the aggregate supply thing. When you read that, it's not just the little quarries that aren't getting planning permission; it's the bigger ones as well. And yeah, listen, I understand the need to protect the environment and to not have great gashes in the nation's surface. The landscape is important. I don't particularly want to look at big holes in the ground, even though those big holes in the ground are usually filled with the kind of equipment that gets me all excited and hot under the collar. But you still need to get your aggregates. And one of my concerns with this is it's once again feels like a right hand and left hand. You've got over here, you've got Angela Rayner talking about attracting all these new people to the construction industry because we need to build 1.5 million new homes in the next 5 years. And over here, you've got planning departments who are saying, "Quarry, not in my backyard, NIMBY all over the shop." the two kind of need to get their heads together and maybe have them bang together so that they actually understand that in order to do that, you need to do that. Um, the big aggregate firms will get planning, yeah, generally, but I mean, even when you look at things like the mining, I know just before COVID, Fred and I went up to Banks mining up in Northumberland. And they've been there for 20, 30, maybe even 40 years, mining away, peacefully, maintaining a bit of a local community there. They'd applied for a planning extension. There was more materials to be had there, declined. So not only did that kill that part of Banks mining, but you imagine all the the local shops, the local car dealerships that all service those people working within Banks mining. What are they doing now? It rips the heart out of a local community. Gary Muirhead says, I also hear that new drivers from the 1st of September can now drive alone with just a provisional license, unaccompanied, because of all the backlog of people who's waiting on a test. Jesus, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that's a great idea at all. The one thing I do remember about me driving, don't know if anybody else experienced this. I learned to drive quite belatedly because my best mate was keen on driving and I wasn't. So he tended to do most of the driving and I tended to do most of the drinking. Hence the reason that I'm a teetotaler now. But anyway, yeah, the long story short, I didn't pass my test until I was 22 or thereabouts, by which time I had a steady girlfriend. Steady girlfriend is now a fairly unsteady wife. But the first time I actually drove unaccompanied, I passed my test, got a car. I let me think. Because I was going to get the car, she had taken the train to my house. So, early evening. "Right, time to take you home, dearie," I said. "Jump in the car and I'll drive you home," which I did. Dropped her off, gave her a big snog because that's what you do, and then left. And I drove from her old front door about 40 yards to the end of the road, at which point I suddenly realized I've never, ever done this alone before. Literally never been sat in a car alone before. And for about 3 seconds, it's like, "How does this work again? What what does this big round thing do?" Yeah, very, very confusing. So I'm not entirely sure that's a great idea at all. Dan Cullen says, "This is where they need to do more recycling of demolition materials, as you see the heap we have here." Yeah, obviously there is a big, again, joined up thinking. I agree, Dan, and let's be honest, the demolition industry is very, very good at recycling, but you also have within the construction industry restrictions on applications that will and will not accept recycled materials. You're all right using it as a base layer. You can use it in some roads and that kind of thing. Can you build a tower block out of recycled aggregates? No, you can't. Nobody wants to touch it with a barge pole. We want to do this, but in order to do this, somebody needs to do that. There it's all these little departments that all seem to be going off in different directions. It's huge, but it's tar and concrete mixed, and man, it's great material. Was one video on YouTube, um oh my god, the guy alone had no sense, almost caused 4 accidents. Yeah. Don't take my word for it, just look back at history. Since the 50s, SMEs in our industry have fallen, and the majority of the market is taken up with a few massive firms. Same with retail industry. Yeah, and listen, it's that thing, isn't it? If you excuse me, if you run a successful little local quarry, the chances are one of the big quarry companies will come along and buy you out. Much the same as we've seen with less so being bought out, but you think about the the place where I don't ever get my beard trimmed anymore because I don't have a beard anymore. They've actually got some posters up of how my local high street is exaggerating it. It's about 20 or 30 shops, parade of shops, local parade of shops. But those photographs go back to the 1930s and the 1940s, and there was a fishmonger and a butcher and a baker. There may well have been a candlestick maker. I really don't know. But now we have a co-op on one side of the road and a Sainsbury's local on the other. And yes, we do still have a butcher's, but we have no fishmonger. We have no baker. We certainly don't have a candlestick maker. because the supermarkets have taken. And I don't know if this applies in the quarry industry, but have we actually gained from that? And the area where I find that the most annoying. Well, there's two: fishmongers and greengrocers. You used to go and buy your fruit and veg. Listen, I'm 60 years old. I'm not talking about immediately after the Blitz. I'm talking in my lifetime. You'd go to the fruit and veg man, the greengrocer, and you'd buy bananas that were ripe. You'd buy pears that you could eat right there and then without breaking your teeth. Now you go to the supermarket and you buy bananas that are green, that are no good to anyone for about a week, and you buy pears that you could knock in nails with. Is that a good thing? Fish. I can't buy fish from either my local Sainsbury's or from the bigger Sainsbury's 2 miles down the road because it's shit. I don't know if you've seen this. They put them in these sealed, excuse me, sealed like foil bags. You get them home, fancy myself a bit of sole, open it up. Oh dear, no, no, no way I'm eating that. Yeah, we've gained convenience and we've lost quality, is what we have done. Yeah. Dan Cullen says, look at Mick George, big quarry tar company, bought him out. Yeah, yeah. All happens. The government's lean towards big businesses. There's double standards everywhere. They wanted us all to be plebs since World War II. They want all to be employees as it makes us easier to control. Yes, the conspiracy theories run thick and fast, but on that one, I don't think that's a theory. I think that's pretty much on the money. Shall we start the show now that we're 23 minutes in? I think we probably should. I'm going to roll the intro. I am going to post the question of the day. Yes, I am. And I'm going to get this show on the road. The preamble on this show is getting longer by the day. Have you noticed? It is Thursday, the 14th of August. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, and in today's show, Volvo's latest excavators explained. Komatsu's latest wheel loaders are designed to deliver. Z-Quip and Leica come together to forge the future, and how the Cat Central app is simplifying equipment maintenance. Plus, in my morning monologue today, and I'll tell you more about this in a second, trading places. Before we move on, let me just very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah, now, our question of the day today ties in with my morning monologue, and it is this. If you could trade places with anyone in this industry for a day, a week, a month, who would you trade with? Now, when I first thought of this, and I thought of it while I was writing today's morning monologue, my first answer was going to be President of the National Federation. Change places with him just to see if he or they actually do anything. But then I thought, that'd be quite dull, actually, because in my opinion, they're probably not doing a great deal. So I switched up a bit, and I'm going to say I'd love to swap places with Tim Burnhope at JCB. First of all, I'd love to get a glimpse behind the scenes at all the JCB products that are in development. I'd love to see the machines that are coming down the line. I'd also love to see the machines that somebody had come up with as a concept, but never quite made the grade. There must be, even if it's only in computer form, there must be like an ideas graveyard within, well, not just JCB, within JCB, Komatsu, Caterpillar, and all these. Love to have a look at that. I'd also like to understand Tim Burnhope's excitement for hydrogen equipment, because he's very passionate about it, and I'd love to get my handle on that. I'd also like to get to eat JCB creme brulee whenever I wanted. That would be an absolute bonus. But what about you? If you could wave a magic wand and swap places with anyone in this industry, who would you swap places with? And yes, you are allowed to say me. I've no idea why you might want to swap places with me, because what I do, a monkey could do. But if you've got anybody, it might even be one of your colleagues, might be your boss, might be somebody high up at, Build UK, NFDC, Construction Plant Hire Association, might be somebody that runs an exhibition, might be somebody that runs a magazine, anything like that. If you've got anyone that you would really like to swap places with, please let me know. Dan Cullen says, NFDC, and get a proper look at their failings and look at it. Yeah. I mean, I kind of look at their failings from over here, and I'm frankly more comfortable over here because the level of backbiting within the NFDC, not really for me. Thank you very much. But yeah, if you've got anybody else that you would like to swap places with, please let us know. And now, 27.5 minutes in, we're going to start the show. As you are aware, the fine folks at Volvo have a new range of excavators that are not the F series, although they kind of are. I've reported on them. Steve Williamson has reported on them. Lots of other people. Mike Wolf has reported on them as well. I know that because I took a photograph of him driving one. Everyone's reported on them, but here is Volvo's own explanation of the new not F series.
Hi, and welcome to this presentation of Volvo 20 to 36 ton excavators. We're going to reveal some really interesting and unique features. Powerful and productive machines with excellent fuel efficiency, operator comfort, performance and controllability. The new generation excavators are built to deliver on customer needs such as production and fuel efficiency. Powerful and productive machines which offer enhanced efficiency, durability and safety and greater fuel savings. They are also easy to own and maintain. The new excavators offers up to 15% more fuel efficiency. Fuel consumption versus productivity equals fuel efficiency. That's what matters to your real bottom line. Low fuel consumption is important, but it's not the whole truth. It's the fuel consumption in relation to your productivity that impacts your profitability. The machines operate under remarkably low RPMs. Engine pump optimization. In other words, the engines run at high torque at low RPM, coupled with large displacement pumps. This gives a high level of efficiency to the powertrain. Low RPM leads to long lifetime of engine components. The maintenance is easy and the machines feature long service intervals. The machines are automatically derated if service is not adhered to. This is to protect the machine from more serious issues. Machines feature robust heavy weldments such as undercarriage, upper frame, boom and arm. The electric installations feature a high resilience to ingress of water and dirt. The optional Dig Assist system can be fitted full suite. With Dig Assist, you can precision dig, do load weighing, attach a tilt rotator or a variety of buckets, and further enhance productivity. Machines are built to operate in high ambient temperatures and feature large-size radiators. The machines feature an all-new cab, fully ROPS certified and with a range of improvements. Among those is the upgraded air conditioning system, standard rear view camera and an all-new and larger display. For part of the range, boom swing priority and boom and arm bouncing reduction comes as standard. Volvo takes further steps to improve the safety. Orange handrails and the 3-point side access to the upper platform is standard. 3-point seatbelt and white noise travel alarm, as well as the 360 bird's eye view camera can fit as option. Thank you for watching.
Yeah, pretty smart bits of kit. I haven't seen them up close. Very impressed. Dan Cullen says that's a Tesla screen. I'm going to go back to our question of the day, which, as you know, is who in this industry. Hold that thought. Morning to Will Fallon, who's just joined us over on Instagram. Who would you like to switch places with here in the industry? Jim Turner has two answers. Tony Bamford. He has a firm I like, a great following, and I've a few ideas I'd like to implement through his products that will put them way in front of their competition. Tony Bamford, if you are watching, Jim, meet Tony. Tony, meet Jim. Get your heads together, fellas. I also like this one, have to say. Jim says, or Gary Major. Yeah, Gary Major, who pops up on here from time to time. He'd love to be able to draw the machines that are trapped in his head. If anyone follows Gary Major over on LinkedIn, particularly, you actually get to see some of the drawings he's done of equipment. I want to say a very quick good morning. Ken Hatcher is watching us over on Instagram. He says, good morning, been waiting on Facebook. Where have you been? We had some issues early doors. The first 5 or 10 minutes, Ken, we couldn't broadcast to Facebook, but we should be there now. If you can confirm that, that would be brilliant. Everybody else seems to be watching over on YouTube this morning, but we did have a minor glitch. I think I fixed it. We seem to be broadcasting there. I'm just not sure if it's actually being picked up over there. If you could confirm that, that would be marvelous. Dan Cullen, on the same subject about who would you like to switch places with? Mr. Lynch. I'm really glad you said this, Dan, because this really does play up to my morning monologue today. You and I are of the same mind. Mr. Lynch of Lynch Plant Hire, to see the nerve-wracking daily working of large companies. Imagine that. Imagine that. And one, I mean, I didn't mention this in my morning monologue, but imagine if you are the boss of a company like a Lynch, or maybe a major demolition company, and you are where the buck stops. And one of the ones that really did strike me was the constant threat of being prosecuted for corporate manslaughter. Um, you can't be everywhere at once. Most MDs and company founders and principals are, office based by and large. And an accident happens, somebody loses their life, which will hit you hard anyway, because chances are it's somebody that you knew, possibly for a long time. And then along come the Rozzers, basically to say, not only have you lost one of your friends, colleagues, and workers, we're going to prosecute you for it. You weren't there, but we're going to prosecute you for it. So yeah, not the walk in the park that everybody thinks it is. Dan says, why is it only now they think of the seatbelt? Is that Volvo? Don't know. Question of the day, the operator of the A-Rex, what a machine, says Demo Dove. What's the A-Rex? Am I missing something? Is that a crane? Is that why I haven't heard of it? I don't know. Anybody fill the gaps there? I'd love to hear from you. We're off to Komatsu Land in just a second.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, we just had a look under the bonnet of the Volvo excavators. Now time to look under the bonnet of Komatsu wheel loaders. Very nice indeed. Dan says, yeah, no other manufacturers not thought of 3-point seatbelt on plant and dozers. Not sure what you mean there, Dan. Have another go at that. Andy Darvell says, does anyone actually run the machine on any other RPM setting than flat out? Says the man that is not paying for the fuel. I always think the machine works better and smoother flat out. Two questions there. Is that true? Do machines run more smoothly on flat out? And does anybody else adjust their revs? Right, I know that tends to be a bit of an old-fashioned thing, unless it's belching black smoke about the place, and I realise black smoke is largely a thing of the past. Unless it's belching black smoke, it's not working to its full ability. But are you adjusting your revs? Are you running in eco mode? Dan Cullen apparently always flat out. And enjoying the Komatsu kit as well. What else? There's a story to the next one. I'll tell you about it in just a second.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So in the run-up to Bauma, which seems like a lifetime ago now, but in the run-up to Bauma, myself and Fred went off to the Netherlands for a couple of days. You may recall, actually. We went to film the ZQuip system, the detachable battery system. It's American, but it was in the Netherlands, and we got to see it up close and personal. While we were there was a young lady and a cameraman there from the fine folks at Leica as well. They'd installed the Leica system on one of the machines that was using the ZQuip system, and they produced a video on it. And I thought I'd show it to you. I've not looked at it particularly closely, but there is a possibility I may be in the background in some of these shots. I don't think I am, because I think they were careful about it, but I may be. And I'm going to come back to Ken Hatter in a moment because he's talking about revs and RPMs. Yes, ZQuip and Leica, and this is what they do.
For years, there has been a myth in the heavy construction industry. Electrification is not powerful enough, it's not practical enough, and it cannot handle the demands of a job site. However, today we are here to prove it otherwise.
Let's fast forward into a future of decarbonized construction. What does that mean? Well, it means two things. First of all, it means that the energy going into the construction equipment activity needs to be environmentally friendly. It also means that you have to optimize the output, the actual footprint of production. So let's go back towards today in terms of, yes, this is no longer just the future. Actually, what we see here behind me is two companies coming together. Leica Geosystems, part of Hexagon with their machine control systems, and ZQuip, part of Moog, with energy efficient and energy friendly energy modules.
At Leica Geosystems, we believe that sustainability and performance don't have to be a trade-off. That's why we are collaborating with ZQuip to enable more greener and more sustainable construction sites of the future.
The result is this machine here, which runs 100% electric to make sure that what goes into the activity has a low carbon energy input. And obviously using Leica's technology, it means that you only move the dirt once, exactly how it's supposed to be, where it's supposed to be with the optimal time, so that the energy per square foot or the energy per cubic yard built or moved is optimized.
Our Leica Geosystems 3D machine control solution helps operators to execute design much more efficient and fast. The result? A machine is not just electric, but smarter, cleaner, and more efficient.
We'll be excited to see you, explain you more in terms of how these two technologies and two companies have come together to optimize decarbonized construction.
And there you are. Didn't see me at all. What I do remember from that site, as I say, that was in the Netherlands. That sand that they were operating in was so fine. It absolutely destroyed our drone for a couple of days. We fixed it in the end, but yeah. We're going back to the subject of revs. Who knew we were going down this path? We have a couple of people, Dan Cullen and Andy Darvell, who believe flat out is the best. Ken Hatcher over on Instagram for this morning says, I adjust my revs a lot. No good. That's what the knob is for. Flat out all the time is wasting tons of fuel, which is where I come from on all of this. And then Jim Turner says this. I adjust the revs on my mini digger because it's a hand throttle without auto decelerate. And on the 3CX, it's not worth going much above 1500 RPM when on backhoe. Contrary to that, Dan Cullen says, on RPM, best flat out for AdBlue system to work correctly to get the exhaust to the correct temperature. Is that not just a build up though? Is that not just I mean, maybe when you start, but surely once you've got it to temperature, you can ease back, can't you? I'm asking for a friend. I don't actually know the answer to that. Now, I did mention Mike Wolf earlier, and lo, he appeared. Those new Volvo CE machines, construction equipment, are also very quiet to operate. The cabs are large and comfortable. Such a difference from those first machines I tested years and years ago. Yeah, as I say, there is photographic evidence of Mike Wolf behind the controls of, I think it was the EC400. I may be making that up, but he certainly, as I say, I took a photograph of him doing so. We were talking about the AREX, which is the A-Regger big demolition machine. Can't remember if it's a Liebherr or a Cat. I think it's a Liebherr, isn't it? Is that the Avenir machine? Is it? Don't know. Anyway, let's crack on. We've got one final film to show you, I think. Is it? Yeah, one final film featuring the Caterpillar app. And then we're going to be talking about trading places. Back after this. Yeah, we've featured the Caterpillar app in the past, and we'll probably do so in the future. But this is how the Caterpillar app can help you with your equipment maintenance duties. And it looks like this.
We know maintaining your equipment can feel daunting. Too often the right resources can be scattered and difficult to find. With the Cat Central app, trusted information is always within reach. Cat Central gives you all the answers, resources, and parts you need to confidently take equipment maintenance head on. Simply scan the QR code on your equipment and instantly unlock tailored resources to keep your equipment running. Access operation and maintenance manuals, which provide information to access points, preparation steps, and details around your equipment's interval schedule. Learn how to install parts, inspect and maintain your equipment, and so much more with DIY how-to videos. Cat Central also offers planned maintenance kits, which contain all the parts and instructions you need for routine maintenance in one convenient package. The Cat Central app helps keep your equipment reliable so you can focus on what matters most.
Late, but welcome nonetheless. Chris Ford has just pitched up. He says, morning, everyone. Been unblocking the crusher. A bit like Mastermind. I've started, so I'll finish. Now, do you remember that? Now sweating like a good one. Think I'm getting too old to do it on my own. You need an apprentice or a lackey or somebody that's somewhere between the two. Morning, Chris. Good of you to join us. You've arrived just in time for the real fun part, listening to me babbling on, because that is it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. It is warm out there. If you can't stick around, I hope to see you again very soon. Tomorrow, maybe, would be nice. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll be back immediately after this. Let me get myself comfortable. It's a trope that's been used on movies such as Trading Places and Freaky Friday, and on TV series like Back to the Floor and Super Sized versus Super Skinny. Take two people of opposing wealth, gender, or size and get them to walk a mile in each other's shoes. So, what would happen if we took a demolition or construction worker and had them trade places with a demolition or construction industry CEO or founder? Now, let me be clear. I realise that some of those at the very top of the industry have risen through the ranks. I realise there are some that currently hold senior positions who once swept yards, washed machines, and cleaned bricks when they were younger. But how far, I wonder, has their rise through the ranks taken them from their humble beginnings? Now, sadly, I don't have a Hollywood budget. Neither do I have a backing of a TV production company and the researchers they have at their disposal. So I did the next best thing. I sat down for a long chat with an AI. Let me stress, this article, this monologue, was written entirely by yours truly. I merely used the AI to discuss the basic premise. Then I took the results and wrote the words you're basically listening to now. So here we go. Picture this. It's a regular Tuesday morning. The sun's barely up, the kettle's just boiled, and somewhere in this great and glorious industry of ours, something utterly ridiculous and entirely unexpected happens. A demolition boss and a demolition worker swap lives. I'm not talking about a trade jobs for a week in one of those cheesy team building exercises. I mean a full-on body swap, like the movie Freaky Friday, except with more high-vis and swearing and maybe a few less teenage tantrums. 1 minute, Dave, who's been driving an excavator for the past 15 years, is pulling on his boots, and the next, he's sat in a plush leather chair behind a mahogany desk, staring at a laptop that's pinging like a microwave. And up the road, Martin, who actually owns the company, drives a flash car, and has managing director on his business card, is suddenly in a muddy site cabin, holding a hard hat and wondering why his hands already smell faintly of diesel. Now, you'd think Dave's first thought would be, nice, day off from the hard graft. And Martin's first thought might be, at last I can get some fresh air. Both would be wrong. Let's start with Dave in the boss's chair. At first, it's brilliant. Warm office, clean clothes, coffee machine that doesn't taste like someone's rinsed it with motor oil. But the honeymoon lasts about 6 minutes, roughly the time it takes for the phone to ring, 3 emails to arrive marked urgent, and a text from the accountant that just says, call me now. Turns out the boss's day isn't a leisurely float through champagne lunches and cigars lit with £5 notes. It's a mad scramble between client calls, half of whom are delighted with the work, the other half convinced the company is run by trained apes. There's insurance renewals, health and safety audits, supplier delays, and a tender deadline that might as well be a ticking time bomb. Dave starts to realise that when you're the one with the name on the company registration, everything lands in your lap. Doesn't matter if it's your fault or not, the buck stops with you. And then there's the money. The worker's biggest financial worry might be whether the overtime comes through on this week's payslip. The boss, he's looking at cash flow spreadsheets and wondering how to make payroll when the client's check hasn't cleared or arrived. Because if he doesn't, it's not just his mortgage on the line, it's everyone. Now let's check in on Martin down on site. First shock, the start time. The second shock, the weather. Cold enough to freeze your eyelids, and it's only 6:45 in the morning. He's handed a list of jobs by the site supervisor, who smirks when Martin asks if there's a strategy meeting first. Apparently, on site, the strategy is get it done. By 9 a.m., he's learned that site work is not unskilled. You need to know your tools, the sequence of the job, the safety rules that keep you alive, and the unwritten rules that keep you in the crew's good graces. His back aches, his gloves are already wearing through, and there's a permanent ringing in his ears from the noise of the machines. By lunch, Martin realizes the thing he always thought was banter is actually a vital survival skill. These lads and lasses laugh through stuff that will make most office workers cry. Rain soaking your socks, wind cutting through you like a knife, dust in your teeth. And the clock doesn't stop ticking just because the conditions are miserable. Productivity still matters. You still have to deliver. Over the next few days, the two accidental life swappers start to see each other's worlds more clearly. Dave in the office finds out that the boss isn't off on holiday every time he's not on site. He's probably at a client meeting, a bank appointment, or trying to sweet talk the plant hire company into extending credit for another month. He discovers that while physical work batters the body, mental stress gnaws at the mind in a way that doesn't clock off at 5 p.m. You can leave the tools in the shed at night, but you can't put unpaid invoices and safety liability out of your head. Martin on site realizes that workers aren't just doing as they're told. They're constantly thinking, adapting, improvising to keep the job moving. The speed at which they solve problems is staggering. And there's no luxury of calling a meeting to discuss options. You've got to think on your feet, often with half a ton of steel dangling from a crane above your head. Soon, they both start to notice something else, something they actually share: pride. The boss takes pride in keeping the company alive, in winning contracts, in paying wages on time. The worker takes pride in a job done right, in looking back at the end of the day and seeing something tangible, something they built or cleared or made safe. That pride is the glue that holds the whole thing together. There's also the things that make them laugh later when the shock of the transition wears off. Martin trips and falls into a freezing puddle of water, instantly earning him the nickname Aquaman. Dave sends a reply all email to an entire client list, calling a supplier more slippery than an eel dipped in baby oil. Both soon discover that their mistakes carry consequences. By the end of their strange little adventure, both are utterly exhausted, just in different ways. Martin's body feels like it's been through a cement mixer. Dave's head feels like it's been used as a drum kit. They swap back, glad to be in their own skin again. But something sticks. The next time Martin walks onto site, he doesn't just nod and disappear into the cabin. He lingers for a bit, asks questions, notices the subtle skill in the way that someone operates a machine or cuts steel. And the next time Dave hears about a delayed payment or a lost tender, he remembers that sinking feeling in the office chair and doesn't assume it's just management incompetence. They've both seen the other half's reality. They've both learned that the job at the top and the job at the bottom are tough in their own ways. Different pressures, different skills, yet both essential. And maybe they've both realised that the gap between us and them isn't quite as wide as they previously thought. Well, Trading Places, we've all seen the movie. My version had no Dan Aykroyd and no Eddie Murphy. What do you make of that? And as I say, Dan Cullen keyed us in very, very well on that. Because he mentioned this notion of trying to imagine trading places with somebody running a Lynch plant hire. Imagine the mental stress of that, and constant mental stress. It's not. I'm fairly sure nobody in that sort of level of management ever switches off. I would imagine that goes home with them. Mark Fitz 77 says, anyone looking for a high reach operator? If anyone is looking for a high reach operator, Mark Fitz 77 over on Instagram. Mark, put your details over on LinkedIn if you haven't done so already. And if I spot it, I'll give it a repost for you, my friend. Not a problem at all. What do we got there? Peter McKenna says, here I am. Sorry to keep you waiting. You can start now. Thank you. Thank you. Jim Turner says, I'm a bit sad your version didn't have Jamie Lee Curtis's tits in it. Jamie Lee Curtis. Yes, I've had a bit of a thing for Jamie Lee Curtis for a long, long time, and Trading Places was the clincher. If you've seen it, you will know precisely why. And I'm fairly sure, if anybody remembers the scene, she takes her top off with Dan Aykroyd looking on. And Dan Aykroyd's expression, I don't believe he was acting. I think it was, wow. Very well written, says Dan Cullen. That's like a street that's 24/7. Yeah. I mean, listen. Dan was just, I'll come back to that. Mark, share my number. I can help that guy on the long reach. Mark, I'll drop you a line after the show with Dan's details. Jim Turner, yes, she revs me up too. Even today, even today. And she's she's knocking on a bit, but still a very, very. This is a terrible admission to make, but when we are on a cruise ship, and we've done this 4 or 5, maybe 6 times now, we tend to go with Princess Cruises, and Princess Cruises have in-cab or in-stateroom TV, and one channel is entirely dedicated to the old TV show, The Love Boat. Anyone remember The Love Boat? Are you all old enough to remember The Love Boat? Terrible, terrible TV series. However, one of the things that is interesting about The Love Boat is, I think it was mid to late 70s. And you get to see people like one episode we saw had Tom Hanks in it, but Tom Hanks pretty much as a late teenager. But we also saw one episode with a very, very young Jamie Lee Curtis in it. And it was Jamie Lee Curtis and her mum, playing mother and daughter, not surprisingly. And Jamie Lee Curtis, early 20s. Oh. And Mr. Clips of Beast is back. I'm back. I'm finally back. Good morning to you. Good of you to join us. Thank you very much indeed for that. Batshit Crazy is with us as well, saying, "What's up?" Yeah, what's up to you, my friend? Good of you to join us as well. I do wonder how they manage the stress levels. This is not all it seems running national companies, and not even national companies. Imagine, you're you run a demolition company. Maybe you've got a dozen guys working for you. Every week or every month, you've got to pay them their wages. Excuse me. You've got that constant concern that if something goes wrong, the buck stops with you. I listen. We back in the day when I had a limited company, that was always the concern, and you do find yourself being. We lived the highs. We lived the highs. We had a period of 5 or 6 years back to back where our turnover increased and our profit increased year on year on year on year, and then a recession hit, and you wake up one day and realize you haven't actually paid yourself for 3 months. You've paid all the staff, but you haven't paid yourself. That's a bit of an eye opener. 1 second ago. Peter says, "Well, at least I caught you portraying your personal discussion. You do know talking to yourself is a sign of insanity." I do it all the time, though. Was that the one with the midget that played Nick Nack in James Bond? No. No, that was Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island? Fairly sure that was Fantasy Island. The plane, that little fella. Yeah. No, Love Boat. It's a weird one. What people tend to get excited these days about product placement. Um, on the BBC, you tend to have to cover up logos, and you don't say, "I'll have a can of Coke," or whatever it might be. You have a can of a cola drink or whatever. It's all a bollocks. When you look back at Love Boat was basically a series, and it ran for a good 8, 9 different seasons, I think. It was basically one big product placement because the ship itself was clearly labeled. It was a princess ship. The uniforms all tied in, the logo was clearly visible, and all the things. And basically, it was, for those of you that haven't seen it, the basic premise was they took the cruise ship generally for a 3-day cruise around the Caribbean or the Bahamas. And there were 2 or 3 stories going on. So, there's a young couple that have arrived on the ship, and suddenly they fall in love, and by the time they get off 3 days later, they're married. There's usually some sort of divorce going on that all ends happily, usually after they've sought advice from the captain. Utter bollocks, utter bollocks. But my wife loves it. Peter McKenna disagrees with me. Love Boat was fantastic. Have you watched it recently, Peter? Yeah, I mean, it was a simpler time. It was a simpler time, and I tell you, one of the things that really does jar now when you watch it back, there is a ship's doctor in the show. If I thought about it long and hard enough, I could probably tell you the guy's name. But basically, he is supposed to be married 4 times, divorced 4 times, bit of a lech. And basically, yeah, that's his character. He is the ship's doctor, and there he is in his white uniform, but will chase anything in a skirt. Feels oddly uncomfortable in this day and age. Really does. Mark Fitz, answering yourself is the next. Yeah, well, I do that too. In actual fact, I mean, just to be absolutely clear, when I wrote that Trading Places monologue, as I say, I had the idea in my mind, and I also wanted it to sort of reflect Trading Places and Freaky Friday and stuff like that. So I literally fired up a chat GPT, put it on audio mode, and just sat there and had a chat and wheedled it out. Tell you the other thing as well, while we're talking about AI, I'm playing with Microsoft Copilot. Anyone played with Copilot? I've got it on my phone. I don't know if you can see that. It's that one there, Copilot. Very good. Very, very good indeed. I have to say, I'm really quite impressed with it. I took Fred to a squash match the other night, and I thought, well, it was about a 20-minute drive away, and the game was only going to last about 20 minutes. So I could have taken him, come home, but I would have come home, turned around the car, and gone back and picked him up. So I thought, oh, I'll stuff it. I'll sit in the car park, and I sat there and I had a chat to Copilot for about an hour. Yeah, because he got delayed and stuff. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Really, really interesting. There is a similar version now called Dr. Odyssey. Dr. Odyssey. Well, is it similar to the Love Boat? I'm not sure I want to tell my wife about that, because that'll be our next binge watch. But yeah, just very quickly going back to the Trading Places thing. I do wonder about. There was a was the show called Back to the Floor. Fairly sure it was called Back to the Floor. I'm just going to check, because they did one. Yeah, I thought my brain was working ish. It used to be a TV show. It was on the BBC called Back to the Floor, where they would basically take the boss of a company and put them down at the site level. I think the Americans do a different version with the boss in disguise or whatever. But I do remember one very, very distinctly, the Barclay Group, the house builder of the Barclay Group. The boss at the time was a guy called Tony Pidgley, and they put him back out on site, and it made for really, really interesting watching, but it was also clearly really enlightening for him as well. When he actually saw the day-to-day challenges that people were facing, the hardships they were facing, the problems they were continually encountering, because when you move up, thank you, Dan. Thank you. That's the one I was talking about. Undercover Boss. That is the American one, where they actually put somebody in disguise and send them in to work. And Peter says, I've sent the trailer to Dr. Odyssey to my WhatsApp. Thanks, Peter. I'll have a look at that on the way to the theatre a bit later on. What was I going to say? I was going somewhere with that. No, can't remember. Lost my train of thought. Trying to read too many things at the same time. But that notion of actually, I know what I was going to say. Yes, back in the day, when I worked for a publishing company, I'm sure I've told you bits of this before, but my dad was a chauffeur for the same company where I was a budding reporter. And one of the guys that he drove most often was the CEO of Reed Business Publishing, a guy called Graham McVeigh. Really nice fella, obviously, very, very smart and everything else, but a nice guy. Anyway, the building that we worked in, both myself and Graham McVeigh and my dad and my wife and my mother-in-law, and bit incestuous, but anyway. So there was a building that was about 19 stories high. On the ground floor, there were a couple of canteens, restaurants, and there was a director's one on the 19th floor. So most of the time, the directors tended to eat upstairs, champagne and fine wines and lobster thermidor. I'm guessing. I don't know. I didn't go in there much. And then downstairs, it was, it was half reasonable. Well, there was a restaurant where you could get, a proper, 2-3 course meal if you wanted. The other side was a bit more, burger and chips and stuff. Anyway, my dad was one of those, was raised to respect his betters. So I referred to Graham McVeigh as Graham. My dad referred to him as Mr. McVeigh. That's kind of the distinction. One lunchtime, I'm sat down in the canteen bit. I think I probably got burger and chips because, why not? And up walks Graham McVeigh, clutching a plate of egg and chips. And he chose to sit with yours truly. I mean, I knew who he was. He clearly knew who I was because we were chatting away. And I said to him, why? Why are you down here with the plebs when you could be upstairs with the cigar smoke and everything else? And he said, 2 reasons. He said, one is I really quite like egg and chips, which won me over immediately because it is a fine meal. The other thing he said was, I like to hear what people are saying about me and the company. He said, you don't get that upstairs. And I wonder if people, should actually leave the office every once in a while, go and spend some time on site. And I realise it'll be unrealistic. It's a bit like the NFDC site audit, or when I go to visit a site, if the boss turns up, everyone's on their best behaviour. Are you really going to see what goes on day to day? But I do think, as the occasional refresher, I don't think that would be a bad idea at all. And possibly, going the other way as well. Get those on site to experience a bit of what it's like. In the boardroom and stuff. Gotta say, Mark, if it wasn't for the logo on the hat, I would have thought we had a new presenter, Toy Soldier Anthony. I had a phone call yesterday from my mate Pat Williamson, used to be the convention chairman of the NFDC, and he had put the show on day before yesterday. Put the show on, but he then muted it because he was taking a phone call. And, he was taking the phone call, and he glanced over at his iPad where I was still chatting away, and he said, I thought, oh, Mark must be away. He's got a stand-in. And it was only when he finished the phone call and pressed the unmute button that he heard my voice. It was like, oh, it's that Pillock, only without a beard. Yeah. Morning, Pat. Hope you're well. Peter McKenna, now I'm going to have egg and chips for my dinner. A true influence, Mark, not like these plastic ones. Yeah, the world is awash with plastic influences. Yes, if I can influence a few more people to have egg and chips for their dinner, my work here will be done. It is a bit of a go-to, I have to say. Anyone ever seen the movie Shirley Valentine? Pauline Collins and Tom Conti, where a woman basically grows tired of her life in England and goes off and takes up with a Greek waiter or chef or whatever he is, but she ends up working in a what do they call Greek restaurants? It's not a trattoria, is it? That's Italian. Doesn't matter. She's working in basically a Greek restaurant, but they're doing English food, and she refers to egg and chips as chips and egg. Chips and egg. That jars with me like you wouldn't believe. Anybody else refer to chips and egg, or are you egg and chips? Things that keep me up at night. Oh, Shirley Valentine, bloody good show. Yes, indeed. There you are. Listen, it's all trips down memory road. We've done Freaky Friday, we've done Trading Places, we've done The Love Boat, and now we've done Shirley Valentine. Good shout, he says, not show. Yeah, good shout. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, Pauline Collins, very, very good. Dan Cullen is chips and egg. Dan. Mark Fitz is chips and egg. What the fuck is wrong with you people? Good Lord. Who puts the plural first, for one thing? And if you found yourself having sausages on the same plate as chips, you can tell I'm trying to be clever here. Are you having sausage and chips, or how are you having chips and sausage? I'll ask you another one. If you go to a chippy, Do you order chips and fish? If you do, you're a madman. Stop that right now. Nobody asks for chips and fish. Dan Cullen says chips and sausage. Oh dear. It is the end of civilization as we know it. Historians in the future will look back and they will point at this show, this very moment, as the point where we all went wrong. This was it. This was the end of days. The days that people started referring to chips and egg. Peter McKenna says, Dan, you have really gone down in my estimation now. Mark Fitz. Mash and bangers. Mark, please, for the love of God, tell me you're joking. Mash and bangers. What? It's things like that. That's the reason I lock my door at night, because there are people out there that say with a straight face, chips and egg. Dan Cullen says, I don't eat fish, so you'll never hear me asking for it. Mark Fitz says, I'm joking. Mark, you've just gone from my bad books back into my good books. Thank you. I can actually feel the relief in my chest. Everybody, oh, fuck knows how we got here. Everybody, go and have a fantastic day. I am off. I am off to the theatre with my good lady wife in about hour and a half or thereabouts. So I'll be back tomorrow. I don't know. I mean, bearing in mind we've talked about the Love Boat and mash and bangers today. Fuck knows what we'll be talking about tomorrow. The only one that works is couples and sex. Couples and sex. Plural first. Oh, I see. Yeah, no, that does work. Yeah. And Mark Fizz says, stay safe. Yes, stay safe. And in order to do so, wear a hard hat, wear your boots, wear your high vis, wear your gloves, wear your glasses, and steer clear of anyone that says chips and egg. For they are unpredictable. Everybody have a fantastic day. See you tomorrow.